This video is part 3 of Avengers
Watched by Death.
the fan fiction I'm doing as an alternative to Avengers Endgame. You might want to check out parts 1 and 2 if you haven't already. With that out of the way, let's begin. We start out at a military compound with Tony Stark sitting on a bench next to a wall. He was in shock over the Mandarin's recent attack before his mind began to wander.
You will all fall before me.
Tony, said a voice. Ah, Tony said, coming back into this world. Rhodey, what's going on? Came to see if you were okay, Colonel Rhodes said. I want out, Tony said. I want out of the military. Doesn't work like that, but you should get some sleep, Rhodes said. What if the Mandarin attacks? Tony said. I don't think Nebs can take him on alone. Let me at him, Rhodes said. Are you sure? Tony said. Have you seen what he's capable of? He's like a mini Thanos. I've actually fought Thanos myself. He squeezed you like a banana seconds after you engaged him, Tony said. I did have to deal with his army of Outriders before that, Rhodes said. They make the Chitauri you fought look tame. Suddenly, they found themselves outside Tony's quarters. You tricked me, Tony said. And if I can do that, imagine what the Mandarin, who we know has mind manipulation powers, can do, Rhodes said. What if I have to report for duty? I'll vouch for you, Rhodes said, opening the door. Good night. We then cut to Serena in the New York Sanctum's library, watching Wong read. She stood there, hesitant, wondering if she should say anything. Wong? Serena asked. What is it? Wong asked, continuing to look at his book. You know, you said that I'm a reincarnation of someone and that I retain their memories? Serena asked. Wong turned around. I take it some of those memories have returned, Wong suggested. I think I know who I was previously, Serena said. And I'm not sure I should divulge that information. Do you believe this person to have been bad? He disgusts me, Serena said flatly. Wong thought for a moment. If what you say is true, the memories could bog you down. He thought some more. I suggest that occasionally you go out into the streets and help anyone you find in need. Serena couldn't believe what Wong was saying. Are you saying I should go out at times? She asked. The best way to handle a bad conscience from a previous life is to build up a positive one in your current life, Wong said. We then cut to a scene where Serena is in Central Park, walking along when she came across the same pair she encountered previously. You look familiar, the daughter said, causing Serena to realize that she hadn't heard her speak before. Is this what you do in your free time? Serena asked. Today, the father said. Oh, by the way, this is a friend of ours, he continued, indicating the guy in the wheelchair. Jonathan. How do you do? Serena asked. I'm alive, Jonathan said. What do you do in your spare time? The daughter asked. Magic, Serena said. Could you show us? Serena wasn't sure what trick she should show them. It had to be a small trick. She thought about healing the girl's leg. She still had the other leg as a template. But such a trick could prove intrusive as her first trick. She then summoned 2 tiny portals, one over the other, and dropped a pebble down the lower one, causing the pebble to perpetually fall between the portals. before Serena entered the portals and caught the pebble. "What else can you do?" the daughter asked. "I could probably heal your leg," Serena said. "Really?" the daughter asked. "Are you sure about this?" the father asked. "Well," Serena said, thinking of another trick she could show to convince him. She picked up a stick and held it out before turning it into a small snake, exciting the daughter and shocking the father. "Come on, Dad. I hate walking around on this," she said. "Fine." Serena bent over the daughter and began her magic, with light flowing from the daughter's intact leg over to her prosthetic, which slowly morphed into a real leg. "Are you a master of the mystic arts?" Jonathan asked. Serena said, wondering how much she should divulge. "Why don't you come over here?" she suggested, as Jonathan wheeled over a short distance away from the daughter, who was now slowly testing out her new leg. "Do you know how the Ancient One is doing?" Jonathan asked. "The Ancient One was killed before I ever joined," Serena said. "Whoever's in charge needs to know about the traitor they face." "So Mortal is the one who betrayed us," Wong growled. "Too many sorcerers," he said, Jonathan affirmed. "When was the last time you saw him?" Wong asked. "Not since he took my energy away," Jonathan said. "That can happen?" Serena asked. "It's an illegal art," Wong said. "He used to be a huge stickler for the rules. Apparently, he's now willing to break laws. Be extremely careful if you encounter him, Serena. Powerful you may be, Mordo might be able to render them mute." "I'll take that into consideration," Serena said. We then cut to Bruce Banner walking in on Captain America. "Dr. Banner," Cap said, "do you have any insights?" "I was able to analyze some of the shrapnel from the power cores," Bruce said. "While interpreting the energy signatures might take some time, I might be able to run a satellite sweep across the region to determine the Mandarin's total territory." "It's a start," Steve said. "Where's Agent Romanoff?" "I sent her on a mission," Cap said. We then cut to a city in Japan, where a masked figure is watching a gang make a drunken toast with one another, as if celebrating something. Suddenly, the figure jumped off the roof and onto the balcony, drawing swords and causing the gang to pull out swords of their own. But the figure swiftly knocked their swords aside and pushed them over the balcony, eventually landing over them. "What did they do?" said a voice, startling the figure, who took his mask off, revealing the face of Hawkeye, but with an obvious makeover. "They planted a bomb at the steakhouse," Hawkeye said. "I removed the bomb, but I was able to catch them off guard." "We need your help," Black Widow said. Hawkeye grunted. "A bunch of terrorists?" "Why would I help terrorists?" "You chose to allow a bunch of superpowered Hydra agents to be unleashed upon the world," the figure said. "I haven't forgotten." "I switched sides at the last moment," Widow said. "Yet I didn't see you at the Raft prison. You've always been a deceitful person, Romanoff. Why should I trust you now?" We then cut to a scene where there are a few students training, with Wong watching them. However, while Wong focused on a couple students, another shrieked. Turning to the student who shrieked, Wong asked, "What was that about?" "A guy came out of nowhere and touched me with some ring," the student said. "He did something to me." Wong was dumbfounded. Suddenly, he heard a couple portals emerge behind him, and a couple people emerged from them, attacking the students he had just focused on moments prior. Wong immediately rushed forward to confront the attackers when he sensed a familiar figure behind him emerge behind him. "Mordo," Wong snarled. Immediately, Mordo snatched Wong by the ankles and began drawing Wong over to him. Suddenly, Mordo turned around to see Serena forcing him back. Mordo escaped himself out of there as Serena turned to face Mordo's disciples. Serena summoned her own shields, which briefly flared red and orange before powering up to a bright blue. One of the disciples smashed his shield against hers, but she ended up blowing him back a few yards. Another disciple summoned an eldritch sword, but Serena transformed it into a snake before summoning her own sword, which also started out red and orange before turning blue. Ah! Serena suddenly shrieked, noticing a hand touch her with a ring, and suddenly Mordo appeared, primed to take away her powers. But suddenly, Serena convulsed, and her skin suddenly became bluer and colder. She suddenly blasted Mordo with a powerful burst of wind that left him shivering and covered in snow. Suddenly, Wong appeared, looking at the blue Serena with a sense of shock before trapping Mordo in the crimson bands of Sitarak. Serena suddenly morphed back into her usual self, though the people around her still seemed shocked. "Let me deal with him," Wong said, indicating Mordo, "and then come with me." We then cut to an overview of the Earth and zoom in on Norway, where a majestic city is perched next to the cliffs. We then cut to Thor, deep in thought. "My gracious king," said a very familiar voice, "the head Valkyrie has reported that someone requests permission to enter the grounds." "Roger that, Rocket," Thor said. "Would you and Tree like to join me?" We then cut to a wall where Wong and Serena stood, surrounded by the Valkyrie. Then the Bifrost beamed from a high tower, leaving behind Thor, Rocket, and Groot standing before Wong and Serena. "Sith?" Thor asked. Somehow, Serena smiled for a moment, and it took her a couple seconds to respond. "The name rings a bell, but I don't think it's because it was mine," Serena said. Turning to Wong, Thor said, "I wasn't aware you were one to venture far outside the Sanctum. What brings you out here?" "The Sanctum was attacked recently, and the attackers were apprehended," Wong said. "However, during the battle, I discovered that she was part Jotun. It was at that point I realized that you two likely knew each other." "Well, the one guess I had proved to be wrong," Thor remarked. "She performed the blood restoration ritual in the past," Wong said. "During a time, you thought of her as your brother." Thor's eyes widened as he realized who stood before him. "Loki," he gasped. Serena smiled uncomfortably for a moment. "Hello, brother," she said. And that is where this part ends. So, what did you all think? Great addition to the story? Or was it so-so? Are you worried that I might end up spoiling Endgame? Or are you confident that it and Quantum Revenge will be sufficiently different? If I ever get my keyboard into Arkansas, should I add a score to the fanfiction? Let me know your thoughts in the comments section down below and subscribe so that you'll know when I upload a new video.